Life story and testimony on quitting alcohol and drug addiction by Jamesboy Imani. I was born in Nairobi, Kenya, and it is where I did my elementary and primary school education. I was lucky to be raised by my biological parents with fellow siblings. My dad is Ugandan, Mtoro by tribe, born and raised in Kabarole district. My mother is Ugandan by birth, of Rwandan descent. I moved to several schools in primary school due to the nature of my father's work. He was a teacher, and whenever he got better opportunities, he would move with me. He worked with private schools, which entitled him to some benefits. Growing up, I believe I was exposed to two extremes of life. I had an experience with the not so well-to-do in society and also the wealthy and the influential. In my Standard 4, I attended Dorarwa Primary School, which was a government school that accommodated kids from all walks of life. Majority were from the slum setting. This gave me a great challenge because each kid had their own different character. Most kids loved fighting and bullying. It is easy to say now, when I look back, that most of those kids came from broken families. I remember the misery on their faces, their personal appearances, and the dirty torn uniforms. The classrooms were fully packed, about 80 pupils per class, and we sat 3 per desk. The class teacher would decide the seating arrangement. I believe it was based on character. I remember sitting between two chubby twin sisters, and whenever we had break time, they would hold conversations as I kept silent. I was very reserved. After 2 terms in this school, I was transferred to a private school that my dad was working as a teacher, called St. Anne's Junior Academy. This school was multiracial, with Arabs, Indians, whites, and African kids from different tribes and nations, like Somalis and Ethiopians. I was still shy at this stage, and I got bullied a lot. I remember one Arab girl that used to sit behind me called Rahat. She used to bully me on a daily basis. She sometimes confiscated my break time snacks, and I would never say a single word. Later though, we became friends somehow. I did not last at St. Anne's Junior Academy, as my dad received yet another better opportunity. After 1 term, I moved to Kilimani Junior Academy in Langata Road, Nairobi. This was a totally different atmosphere. It was a place for the rich and affluent. The environment was enough to tell that I was now rubbing shoulders with kids that came from high echelons of society. I remember the tasty meals that were served at the school diner, ranging from hot dogs, sausages, chips, spaghetti, meatballs, and more. Shockingly, some kids packed homemade lunch, claiming that food at the diner was not good enough. Anyway, as for me, I enjoyed every meal, though once in a while, I packed homemade lunch too. Apart from the rich lifestyle, this school was among the best performing schools in Kenya. Privately owned schools are usually the best performing schools academically in Kenya. I had the challenge of catching up with the syllabus due to the constant movement from school to school and the fact that I was studying with the cream de la cream in the nation. Here, classes had a maximum of 20 pupils. The school founder was a white lady called Mrs. Motion. Rest in peace. Unfortunately, due to the technicalities, I did not register to sit my final year at Kilimani Junior Academy. I did my Kenya Certificate of Primary School Education in a government school. All in all, I thank God for I performed well, and I was able to be admitted to a good private boys' school for my secondary school level. My dad made up his mind that I should move back to Uganda for my high school. I believe one of his reasons for this was for me to become acquainted and accustomed to my roots. He was worried that the Kenyan culture was taking a toll on us together with my siblings and would fail to connect totally with our homeland culture. Honestly speaking, I was not happy with the decision, though I had no choice. I had so many friends in Kenya, both at school and church, and many of us had planned to reunite in the same secondary school. The transition from my early childhood environment to my new environment in Uganda was quite challenging and difficult in many ways. My first problem was the communication barrier, where almost everyone in Kampala city spoke in the Luganda dialect, the traditional language of the Baganda people. I was mostly conversant with English and Swahili, the languages I grew up speaking. But many of my peers and the people around me could not speak Swahili, including the family members that I found in Uganda. Another big challenge that I faced was living far away from my immediate biological family. As a family, we were raised in so much love and a very tight bond. Due to this transition, I was the first of my siblings to move back to Uganda. The rest remained in Nairobi to continue studying, including my mom and dad, who were also working that side. Everything was so new to me: the environment, the food, the culture, and the lifestyle. I believe Uganda gave me exposure to a lot of things, though some of them were negative. As a child, I had been raised in a strict Christian family, and everything in my growing up was controlled. From the TV programs we watched, the friends we had, and even the places we went to. It was either home, school, or church for me. In my new environment, however, church was not emphasized. There was less supervision in many things, since my uncle and auntie were always busy with work. As serious business people, they were always absent due to work commitments. I arrived towards the end of the year in the month of December. We were many kids at home, and at the time the mood was more festive and a lot was happening around me. In summary, the new exposure I got brought both good and bad. In the end, realizing I no longer had an option of turning back events, I made up my mind to adjust and fit in at all costs. The terrible alcohol addiction journey began with simple curiosity in the mind. This was because on several occasions we had family parties at my uncle's place. I would always see my uncles and the invited guests sipping on beer and spirits. It seemed a special drink for the older people, and I perceived it as an honorable kind of drink that displayed maturity and respect for the persons consuming it. My biggest curiosity was how alcohol tasted like, and often I would see some people smoking too. This was the festive holiday season, and I was in my primary school vacation awaiting my results to apply for admission to a Ugandan secondary school. It was a period of massive merrymaking and at most times with little supervision on us, the children. One time, as we played in the house as kids, we landed on the house store keys, where the leftover alcohol was kept. This was a period after our auntie's wedding, so there was surplus alcohol. We decided to pull out one key from the key holder, since there were about 3 of the same copy. My cousin brother and I opened the store and locked ourselves inside. It was about 3 in the afternoon. We both had a stubborn nature and liked to experiment with everything, probably due to the adolescent stage. I was 13 years at the time. Shocking to our eyes, the store was filled up with all kinds of alcohol ranging from the beer crates, spirits, brandy, and wines. It was too much that we were almost out of choice. We decided to start with the bottles that looked more appealing to the eye. These were Kingfisher bottles, the first alcohol I ever tasted. It had a sweet taste, which encouraged us to drink more and more of it at high speed. Honestly speaking, I cannot remember how the day ended. We woke up sometime in the afternoon of the next day. All we could hear were people looking for us, wondering where we had disappeared to. The search seemed to be very serious, so we planned and sneaked out with no one noticing and went to our room. I cannot remember the excuse we came up with for our disappearance. From the time we had the spare key, this habit became our daily routine for approximately 2 months until all the alcohol got done. By this time, we had gotten used to the taste of all the types of alcohol and no longer faced any difficulty drinking the bitter spirits. It was a shock after some time when the house help opened the store in order to take out the alcohol on the orders of my uncle for use on an upcoming event. She came out screaming that the room had been broken into and nothing was left. I can confess now that my elder cousins got a beating of their life, since they were the main suspects due to age. We walked away free because no one could suspect that a 13-year-old could do something of that magnitude. In the mid-January of the next year, my Kenya certificate of primary education results were out, and I had performed well. My dad brought them to Uganda to the Ministry of Education for conversion to the Ugandan system of grading, so that I could secure a place in secondary school in the opening school term. I was awarded aggregate 8, and later my uncle got me a place in Gombe Secondary School, a Muslim school located in PG district. This was the same school that my other cousin brothers and sisters were attending, but in higher classes. This was my first time to a boarding school. It was even my first time to handle money. I remember my uncle handing me pocket money and asked me to use it judiciously. Later, he drove away and left me in the hands of my cousin brothers. Life was extremely different this time. It was now all about self-initiative and survival. I had to look out for myself in many things because my elder cousin brother could not always be available to protect me. Fetching water, washing clothes, attending preps, and living with so many people from different backgrounds, tribes, religions, and classes, and so many new things. There were so many great experiences, especially making new friends and learning opportunities. The tough challenges I faced were stealing of uniforms and food snacks, the lining up for porridge, the cold weather, the early morning preps, the strict school regulations, which sometimes called for serious beating known as kiboko. All in all, when I look back now, it was all fun memories. The funny story that I can never forget happened in my past week, where I lost all my school uniforms, my basins, and many other things. I would watch people use my things but would not say a word for fear of getting a beating. We had some notorious big bullies, and since I was a tiny young senior 1 student, silence was my best tool of survival. I also got sick often, and I believe it was due to the change of environment and also because of my history of asthma. I always moved around with inhalers, and I was admitted a lot at the sick bay due to different occurring allergies. But I was very bright in class, and I loved reading. In both the first and second terms, I was among the top 10 best performing students in my class. My major problem being in the Arabic subject, since it was new to me, but I still tried my best to learn from my peers. After 2 terms at Gombe Secondary School, I was moved to day school for closer monitoring. I made several friends at Gombe, both Ugandan and foreign, whom I'm still in touch with to date. I missed 3rd term since no school would admit me at that time of the year. So I had to wait till the next coming year to do an interview in order to join the senior 2 level. After successfully passing the interview exams, I got admitted to Mengo Senior School. In no time, I had begun making new friends. My biggest problem at this juncture was mastering the national currency. I was not yet used to the Ugandan shilling, its value and the pricing of things, and most times some of my friends would cheat me especially when I sent someone to the school canteen on my behalf. I got bullied at first in the beginning by the big boys in the class. My packed snacks would be confiscated and eaten by them. They would also remove and keep my shoes just to make my life uncomfortable. My other major challenge in my new class was the compulsory subjects, which included Uganda and German. I also did not like the technical drawing subject, but at least I enjoyed the home economics subject. Whereas most boys in my class chose to do woodwork or metalwork, I chose to join the girls to do home economics. I remember being teased a lot because of this choice. We were only 3 boys offering home economics in all the streams combined. At this particular time, I was living with my auntie in Nansana, who had requested for the responsibility of taking care of me in the absence of my parents. Being a good friend to my mother, there was no objection whatsoever. I believe that she played one of the major roles to the person that I am today. She was so strict, and though I did not like it at the time, I see now what she was trying to mold me to. She was on my case full time and was always pushing me to do house chores, which I was not used to. We would always have disagreements because I felt that she was making my life intolerable. She would always emphasize revision and would always sit together with my cousins to read at the dining table every evening after dinner. May her soul rest in peace. With time, I began falling in deep depression because deep down, no one could really understand what I was going through. I was not open to talking to anyone. I had learned to contain all the heavy challenges that I faced within myself. This is what led me to seek a way out. I got close with my auntie's driver, and whenever he dropped me from school, I would change from my uniform and go meet him afterwards, since he lived nearby. He used to drink and later introduced me to beer. He lived a very reckless lifestyle. This became my new way of living, and I no longer had time for reading or academics. I became wild and aggressive and no longer felt answerable to my auntie about my whereabouts. I was always involved in fights both at school and the places nearby home. My auntie later discovered what the driver and I had in common, and he was fired immediately. A new driver was hired who seemed tough at the beginning, but later we also got close. I believe that he was worse of a drinker than the previous one. He introduced me to cheap local liquor known as Waraji. It was very affordable, and I used most of my resources to drink it. Every evening after school, my eyes became bloodshot red, and students at school thought I was using opium or a very strong drug. This is how I came in contact with notorious school gangs made up of boys and girls in higher classes. Some of these people are popular figures and celebrities in the country today. Things went to a higher level this time. We would escape from school at daytime and go to the slum places around Nakulabye, Kiaye zone to drink. I also learned to smoke cigarettes and officially became a bad boy, according to the peers that knew me. I became so popular at school as an outlaw, and I was hated by the school disciplinarians. They promised to find a way to expel me. I was always lucky to escape. All the traps set for me till I completed my O-level at the school. Most of my group members were expelled, and only 2 of us managed to complete, since there was no substantial evidence to pin us on any crime. We recruited many other kids to our group, and some joined us willingly. We were the cool kids on the block. Towards the end of my senior 4 level, I was the leader of all the bad boys and girls in the school, including the students in A level. I was simply untouchable. Drinking got worse as my grades continued to decline, but I no longer really cared. School was no longer my priority. I was more interested in secular music. I loved rap and hip-hop music and dance. I used to follow the trendy wild fashion and dress code. I was a very good dancer, and I even invented my own dance moves. I would always attend Transday clubs. One common one was known as Parks Club along Kampala Road. I was also common at bars around Kampala, for example, Rooftop and Four Seasons, where we would go smoking and drinking. These places were closed down on orders of a Minister of Ethics and Integrity at the time, Mrs. Miriam Matembe. She realized that these spots had become dangerous hubs that were destroying teenagers. These were popular holiday makers' hangouts where kids from different schools used to meet and interact. Even popular celebrities were a common sight, either to play pool table games or to drink. Some nights, I would escape from home to go out dancing at popular nightclub known as Club Silk. It is where I would meet my other friends, both boys and girls, to drink and dance the night away. After my senior 4 level, I continued with my wild lifestyle as I awaited my Uganda Certificate of Education results. My performance was average, below the expectations of everyone, since I was known to be brilliant academically. Though I got enough marks to go back to Mengo for the A level, on grounds of indiscipline, I was denied readmission. The names of all the stubborn students were pinned on the notice board and I was among them, which meant I had to look out for another school. This time round, I really felt I hated strict schools, and since my performance was average, I could not easily be admitted to the best government schools in the country. By this time, the rest of my family had moved to Uganda. I was now living with my biological parents and siblings. My dad was always busy with the work hustles, so he took me to a simple school known as Highway College Makerere, located near the main gate of Makerere University. At the beginning, life was hard. Most of the kids knew each other because they had attended O-level together in the same school. I would notice that some did not like me, but no one dared to bully me. I had an attitude of my own. It took me about 2 months without talking to anyone in class. I would attend class, then leave the school immediately after. I would reconnect with some of my former school friends to catch up and drink. At this time, I used to hang out at another popular place alongside Wilson Street after the ban of our former hangout. It was known as DV8, a popular place for holiday makers, musicians, sports personalities, fashionistas, Rastafarians, and even drug dealers. Talent shows and karaoke were common. Basically, everyone had an individual reason why they were there. As for me, it was an ambient place to drink and meditate away from the school crowds. Here, I met different kind of personalities with different characters. Most friends I had were more mature. I had Rastafarian friends who influenced me to use ganja, commonly known as marijuana. I was a common face at the spot, so even when I was broke, I used to still hustle my way out and get alcohol and cigarettes to smoke. I used to spend my bar friends whenever I had some money on me. Back to the school life, many foreign students started pouring in the school. Students from Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, Ethiopia, Sudan, Congo, and even Somalia changed the environment. I felt more at home because everything felt more balanced. I was fluent in Swahili, and this easily connected me with the Kenyans, Tanzanians, and Congolese. It was easy to integrate. I also mixed with the Rwandan students because I understood everything they spoke. I sometimes made cash by dealing in trendy shoes and fashion, selling to my fellow students. I used to buy and sell phones, so I always had some money in my pocket to sustain my lifestyle. I paid no attention to books until it was almost late. I was among the best dancers at school, being called upon whenever there were entertainment parties. We even received invites on several occasions to go and perform in other schools, especially popular single girls schools where I became so popular. It was rare to find me in school uniform. It was even more rare to find me in class. I spent most of my time at the hostel. We had hostels around the school, so we spent most of the day drinking and listening to loud music, especially with the Tanzanians and Kenyans. We even organized our own parties and invited students from other schools for the alcohol drink-up parties. All the crazy boys and girls never missed. I remembered to revise my books in the third term, though it was impossible to cover all topics that I had missed from senior 5. I tried my best, but in the end my performance was not good enough. It was more disappointing than my previous O-level results. No one could really comprehend the reason for my declining academic performance. This was because I always kept my habits on the low, but personally I knew the cause. Nevertheless, I thank God that I at least scored enough to earn me an opportunity at a higher level of learning. My senior 6 vacation was a totally different experience. Most of my group friends had returned to their countries of origin. I had to start all over again. This time I mostly moved alone and drank solo. My popular drinking spot was known as Takeout, just near Wandegear Street. I used to drink every night, especially Tuesdays and Thursdays. On the other days, I was either in Angenois Club on First Street or bar hopping. My list of bars were endless. High Table, Mateos, 9 Degrees, Indigo, Barbecue Lounge, Blue Haze, Cayenne, Isabella, etc. I drank in almost every bar that existed in Kampala City and beyond, stretching to Entebbe and Jinja. At this point, I drank indiscriminately. I later reunited with an older friend from Mengo Senior School who saw me as a role model. She had learned drinking from me, but when we met in my vacation, she was now a pro, as many would call it at the time. She introduced me to many different people, including Sudanese friends, who are also heavy drinkers. I also hooked up with some new friends near my home area who always hosted drinking binges. My life was moving on a very fast lane. No time to sleep except for the heavy hangovers that I experienced. Each bar I went to, I made newer friends. So my drinking circle expanded rapidly. I was always on the move. Some friends would pick me and drop me in cars. In case we were too high, we would sleep in hotels. This was the period when my drinking was still a bit more organized. With time, things started falling out of hand slowly. It reached a point I could not spend a day without tasting alcohol. I had become dependent on alcohol to cover the depression that I believed had been developing all the way from my early years. I was not ready for the hassle of admission at Makerere University. So with advice from a good friend, I joined Uptake Computer School Worldwide, studying by correspondence. We had physical classes at Conrad Plaza, Entebbe Road. Our exams were online. Here I did 2 diplomas, Diploma in Information Systems Management and Higher Diploma in Software Engineering. Life was not so bad for me at this level because I was able to balance everything easily. We had only 3 classes a week and 2 hours per class. Our tutors minded their business. All they did was teach and leave. They were mostly Indian, so the level of interaction was strictly professional. I would never be questioned even when I came to class on a hangover. The school schedule made it easy for me to balance my party lifestyle with my school academics. This time round, to a greater extent, I tried my best to read my books on my own. I did not attend class much, but I tried to make it up by private reading. Whenever I was in class, I tried my best to master what was taught since everything was practical. I remember leaving home many times during this season. This was to avoid the stress of being criticized by my mother all the time concerning my lifestyle. This is the time I moved in with a friend who had the whole house to himself. He was overall controller of everything. His mother was living abroad and she entrusted him with everything, including money. This was the meeting point for many of his friends and close circles. I met him through my brother who was also his close friend. Life here was freestyle and anyone would do whatever he or she wanted. People would drink throughout the day and some would even smoke weed. At the beginning, I drank little as I tried to read my books, but after a while, I joined in on the fast lifestyle. We drank all types of alcohol, including the local liquor known as waraji, which was very cheap. This indiscriminate drinking made me become a hard drinker. I started enjoying the waraji and we would now drink in heavy quantities all day. In the night hours, we would gather as a group and head to club, especially on Tuesdays. It was always campus night. We always had complimentary, so we never really paid. My friend would hire a car, and about 6 of us would squeeze in, and he would drive drunk. He did not have a driving permit. I thank God to be alive today because I remember the several occasions we escaped death narrowly. But at that particular time, it was more of adventure to us. I used to write music, but had never got a chance to step in a music studio. On realizing this, my friend organized with some music producers and I got a song recorded. On the same day, I recorded the song and performed it at the club, and people loved it. It was a Swahili rap song. I became popular in the club because my song was always played on Tuesdays and also due to the performances. This friend of mine helped me record my first 2 songs, and regardless of every negativity we went through, I will forever be grateful. At the club, we would buy a crate of beer and drink it while mixing it with some waraji. We bought waraji from some guy called Baguma, who some knew as Bagzi. He was a popular guy among the party-going crowd, especially the teenagers. He was a waraji seller stationed just opposite Club Silk at the time. Many would crowd his spot since it had cheap drinks. During this time, I managed to finish my first year and earned myself a diploma in Information Systems Management. I performed well that my father agreed to sponsor me for another year as long as I promised to perform even better. This was my lifestyle all through college. I was in college for 2 years, then threw in the towel after successfully getting my diploma in software engineering. My 2 diplomas were awarded from India and United States respectively. Equated to the Ugandan system, I would qualify at the same level of a degree holder or even more. This made me very happy because at least I'd made my parents happy and like my high school results. I decided to put my focus on pursuing music, which I was very passionate about. This is how I ended up in serious drug use and alcohol abuse. During studio sessions, I would meet different types of musicians, including the already established ones. They would offer me advice on how to be successful. Using weed before singing was one of the suggestions I received. So I was high at all times. I was either in a bar, a music studio, a slum smoking, or nursing a hangover at home. That became my new lifestyle. After college, I did not believe in searching for jobs. I believed in creating a career in music. After college is when things got worse. Firstly, due to the family pressure to get a job, which was hard. I believe that this is something that many parents do ignorantly, pushing their children to find work without being fully aware of the conditions we operate in, because unemployment is actually a global problem. So due to the reasons above, I no longer received any sort of financial facilitations for any of my needs. I had to hustle my way out. The big challenge I faced was the opposition I received against doing music at home. In fact, I was told that music was for losers and thugs in community. One way or another, I was able to survive through it all by creating new friends and using my skills where necessary to earn something small. I'm proud to say that I have never involved myself in anything illegal in order to earn money. I don't believe in stealing or cheating. I later got an opportunity through some French teacher to be a home tutor, especially to Indian and Korean families. I used to teach computer classes, but also the other major subjects like the Cambridge and American education system. All my home students excelled highly, and this increased my demand. I home tutored kids from many international schools like Aga Khan Primary and Nursery School, Rainbow International, Kampala International School, Indian International School Uganda, and many more. However, most of my money ended up in bars. This time I was facing grave effects of addiction because I had indulged for some good years. I used to get sudden blackouts which would put my life in a lot of risks. I used to wake up in different places wondering how I got there. I also started becoming very aggressive and would do many dangerous things as a result. I was always involved in physical fights in clubs, some of which I'm lucky to have come out alive. I would get attacked with groups of guys armed with knives and bottles. One time my face was almost disfigured. All my teeth were loose and almost dropped out, bleeding all over. The other dangerous effect was the careless behavior I developed. I would cross the road anyhow, without really caring of the outcome, and on so many occasions I got knocked by motorcycles. Many times I survived death narrowly, with cars, buses, and trucks brushing just next to my skin. The false confidence I had when high made me to do so many unbelievable things. One time I broke through a door of thick glass using my arms and feet. This was a time when my mother refused to open for me at night as I returned from my drinking sprees. After hitting the glass, one of the legs got stuck in the metal rails, so the top glass fell on me, slicing the top part of my thigh on the right leg. Doctors said it was a miracle I was alive, for it missed the main vein narrowly. The bleeding was abnormal from both the arm and leg. As I slept in a pool of blood for some good time, I was so high I did not feel the pain immediately, though I believe I passed out later. It is a long story how I survived that incident. One time as I was drinking on a bar counter on a tall stool, I blacked out and fell backwards, smashing my head on the tile floor and lay still. I was later told that many clients ran out of the bar, fearing that I was dead. I was told that my pulse had stopped beating at the time. How I survived this incident is a story for another day. One of the riskiest things I remember doing under alcohol influence was jumping over a fence of a popular mall in town known as Pioneer Mall. It was late at night and I was very high from a popular bar called High Table on Kampala Road. I was headed towards the old taxi park to get a vehicle back home. It was about 3 in the morning. I don't know how my mind played tricks on me, but I assumed it would be a shorter distance to pass through the mall. It was the worst mistake ever. First and foremost, the walls were too high. I survived breaking all my bones. I landed so badly and lay motionless on the floor. To add salt to injury, the guards thought it was a break-in. I was attacked violently. They hit me with the butt of their guns. I remember the debate they had whether to shoot me dead or not. There were 3 mean-looking guards. I was lucky that one of them was sensible enough to talk the rest out of it. They instead called the police, which picked me with a patrol pickup straight to the central police station. Chikoni area in Makerere is one of the places I frequented a lot, and it is where I survived so many life-threatening incidents. One time I had to jump over a wide ditch to secure my life from a group of foreign students who were determined to kill me because of a particular Kenyan girl that was seated next to me in a bar. With no questions asked, I was immediately pulled outside the bar and a serious fight broke loose. There were about 10 men, so they overpowered me. I was defenseless, adding to the fact that I was very drunk. I sustained serious back injuries from the incident, but by God's grace I lived to see another day. The bad events in my life were too many, and people close to me predicted death any time. My family members especially were very worried, not knowing what next to expect. Later, I was taken to Beautifier National Mental Referral Hospital at the Alcohol and Drug Unit for 3 months. It was a good break, for I got a chance to test sobriety after years. I used to attend interactive sessions where I learned the dangers of substance abuse. I also received counseling. All these things were useful to me later in life on my journey to recovery. Here I gained weight, my eyes cleared totally from red to normal, my appetite went up and my mood was cheerful. Unfortunately, after leaving hospital, I relapsed back to my high life, and this time the latter effects were worse than the former. I was in and out of jail cells either for moving late at night or violence. I was also in and out of hospital either for accidents or depression. I fell into coma twice and was admitted at Zambia hospital, where it was discovered that I was suffering from severe depression. I believe that no one around me was equipped with enough skills to help me. No one considered depression as a serious health problem. Each day I was getting worse, and I even attempted suicide 3 times. One of my artists later came into the picture to try and help by introducing me to a herbal medicinal doctor. This herbalist had helped so many addicts recover according to testimonies. But for my case, it did not work, and I slipped back to my usual life. At this stage, everyone had given up on me, including all my family members. They hatched a plan to get rid of me by getting me arrested and dumped in a prison facility. The plan was well executed, and I was later arrested, but just before they could complete their plan, God made a way out for me. All in all, these events, I sat down, I started pondering about my life. I really wanted to change, but I did not have the power to. I remember one time, while very drunk, I prayed and asked God to help me. After saying a prayer the night I was drunk, something happened immediately. For the very first time in my entire life, I felt an internal peace that I had never experienced before. I felt a silent voice tell me, "You have won the battle." Some few days after, some close friends invited me to attend an overnight church fellowship, and for the first time I agreed. Deep inside of me, I felt I really needed to experience God firsthand, and my life has never been the same again after that first night of fellowship. I felt a strong presence of something new and different. It was the Holy Spirit. Coincidentally, the pastor called out to the people who were struggling with alcohol and drug addiction to go forward for prayer. This was a confirmation to me that God was with me in the struggle to overcome the vice that was taking a toll on me. In about 1 month time, I had lost appetite for alcohol, cigarettes, or any kind of drug. I tried experimenting a few times after, but this time round it was no longer fun. The alcohol began tasting abnormally bitter, and I was no longer interested in cigarette smoking. In fact, I became so allergic that just the simple smell of cigarette would cause me to become very sick. I also quit chewing the Indian tobacco. I was no longer interested in my usual secular rap and dancehall music. I deleted all the secular songs from my phone playlist and replaced them with gospel songs, mainly worship songs. My new pastime was singing worship songs. This spiritually gave me strength, and day by day I was more determined. I completely cut myself off from all the negative circles and kept in isolation. The alone time was really a blessing to me. I kept in my bedroom for almost a year, and many thought I'd traveled somewhere. I switched off my phone. This period gave me time to bond with God one-on-one. I learned so many things under the guidance of the Holy Spirit. I started writing gospel songs. Everyone around me could not believe they knew me. Some even thought I was up to something or had upgraded to a new type of drug. After one full year, it was clear to those around me that I had quit. I began counseling my brother, who we drank with most of the time, to also quit. I began reaching out to substance abusers in the nearby home areas with a message of sobriety. Some took the message positively, while others were angry at me for quitting and instead hated me. Later, I began recording some of the songs that I had written in my isolation period. I was lucky to perform some on a few big Christian platforms. Through this, I was invited to Nairobi, Kenya for a music mentoring program by some Christian producers. I learned how to use music to express my story of my previous real-life experiences in order to inspire and encourage others, those who are going through the same problems I went through. I thank God that most people who listened to my songs were touched, others totally transformed due to them. This is the same period I felt the Holy Spirit tell me to return to Uganda and help the youth and young people struggling with addiction and addiction-related problems. That is how and when the idea of starting an NGO was conceived. It was not an easy process starting and registering the company, I lacked the necessary support because not so many people were willing to be of assistance towards my cause. Some despised me basing on the past bad things they knew about me. Others simply could not believe that someone like me could even imagine taking on such a huge responsibility, and jealousy developed. I was shocked to see some people openly fighting my efforts with no fear nor shame. I received great opposition, but I was determined. I was passionate about my purpose. I knew God was by my side. I thank God for He always makes a way where there seems to be no way. He brought in my way divine helpers. After a year of struggle, I was able to successfully process the permit, which officially allowed me to operate countrywide all over Uganda. This was in December 2019. Even before receiving the permit, I had already begun my operations. I did school outreaches, youth program outreaches, people living with disability outreaches, general community outreaches, rehabilitation centers, and even orphanages. Due to the determination, our team was invited to Nairobi to speak and inspire the slum youth on many occasions. We also received invitations to different parts of Uganda alongside some other organizations to empower the youth population. We have been in operation for a short time, but by the grace of God, we have seen tremendous results and positive feedback. I'm forever thankful to God for granting me a second chance at life to do the things that build communities and the people around me. I'm very optimistic as a believer that the best is yet to come and the sky is the limit. I'm a true living testimony that it is possible to overcome any addiction or any challenge in your life as long as you pursue the right things through the right avenues. Jesus Christ is the only solution to all the problems facing this world today. If He did it for me, He can do it for you too. Nothing is impossible with God. Story as narrated by Jamesboy Imani. My Beautifier, Community Youth, Uganda.